Hello and welcome to the MovieKing Podcast. My name is David Jurmann and I'll be your host. On today's episode, I'll be reviewing the film Sonic the Hedgehog 3. So for Sonic 3, a lot of people were very excited for this movie. The Sonic games have a very passionate fan base out there, and I remember people were freaking out when the trailer came out for this movie. Like, it was crazy. I don't think I've seen people this excited for a trailer since either, like, Superman or Spider-Man No Way Home. Like, people were going crazy. People care deeply about the Sonic games and get very passionate about the lore, the same way fans do about something from Marvel, DC, Star Wars, The Lord of the Rings. Just a lot of people really care about these characters, want to make sure they're done right, and I understand that, it's like Mario and stuff, like, people just really care about these characters. And interestingly, this whole trilogy of movies has had a very strange journey. It all started in 2019 when we got the trailer for the first film, which had a notoriously backlashed, ugly Sonic design that fans hated for good reason. I mean, it was almost like this weird, like, humanoid Sonic that, like, had like these gross, like, human teeth, and it just didn't look right. Like, it looked very off-putting. He was too, like, skinny. I don't know, it didn't look like a hedgehog at all. It was terrible. Thankfully that was later removed, but yeah, I mean, the design is seen in, like, the Disney Plus Chip and Dale movie, if you've seen that. Like, it was literally Ugly Sonic in that movie. Like, it was called Ugly Sonic. But yeah, there was so much backlash from the fans that the studio Paramount decided to spend a lot of money, millions of dollars, and several months to delay the movie and change the design. And then the movie came out right before COVID and did good numbers. I think the change in the design did wonders for the movie and probably saved this whole franchise from being dead on arrival. I mean, like, I really don't think anyone would have seen the movie if it came out. I don't believe we would have gotten a second or third movie at all if Paramount left the movie unchanged and let it come out the way it was. I really do believe that. And the second movie was well received too, but had the obstacle of filming during COVID. And now this third movie, which just came out, had to film around the actors' strike from 2023. So all these movies really had some obstacle to overcome in becoming what it was. And I think it's very impressive that they've all come out, and done reasonably well, and people have liked them. And I think really that first movie, what happened with it and how it basically went from something that could have been dead on arrival to now being, the Kickstarter for this big franchise that people really like, is very, very inspiring and very cool. I think the only real downside was that I believe the original visual effects company that was working on the movie went bankrupt from this whole ordeal, so that really sucks. But for the sake of the movie, I think it was the right move because that awful design could not stay. That was terrible. And as for my opinion on the first two movies, I think they're fine. They're fine movies. They're enjoyable enough, inoffensive but largely forgettable stories, and are basically carried by good CGI and Jim Carrey, who I will talk about a lot in this review because Jim Carrey is so good in these movies. He saves the whole thing. He's terrific. I wish I could say I'm as enthusiastic about these films as the fans are, but to me they're just too kiddie and never really connected with me beyond just being entertaining to watch. I should note I'm not, a very big Sonic game fan, but I do enjoy the games. I'm a pretty casual Sonic gamer. Like, I know a lot of the characters. I'm just not as, like, well-versed as some other people are, but I do enjoy them. My other issue, though, with these movies is that they spend way too much time with the new human characters, and all I want to spend time with is the characters from the games, even including Dr. Robotnik, who is a human. And as for this third movie, I would say it's very similar, if not a little better, actually. If you loved those first two movies, you'll have a blast with this one. I think you'll really enjoy it. If you hated those first two movies, you probably won't like this one either. But if you're more in the middle like I am, you can expect to not be wowed by it, but still probably have an enjoyable time at the movies. If you want to eat some popcorn, drink some soda, just kind of sit back, relax, turn your brain off a little bit, I think you could have some fun here. What this movie does do better than its predecessors, I think, is that A, it focuses a lot more on the best part, which is Jim Carrey. He rocks. And B, it tries to be a bit more serious than the others, so the stakes and story feel a bit more important this time around. It just feels a little bit more mature, and I appreciated that. I think, going from a little bit too kiddie to a little less kiddie, I think works in this movie's favor. I'd still argue that the writing is a major weak point of these movies. The movie just doesn't make much sense when looking back at it. Like, I could nitpick the heck out of it. After it ended, I literally was just like, that doesn't make sense, that didn't make sense, that didn't make any sense. How does this make any sense? It's a Sonic movie. I mean, the thing is, like, I know what you're thinking. It's a Sonic movie. It's about a super fast blue hedgehog who gets rings and teleports places. It's not supposed to make much sense. And that's a fair point. You're not wrong. If you don't care about the logic, that's awesome. But for me, it's kind of distracting. Like, I think you need to have some level of believability, and these movies just don't have that. They're like Fast and Furious. You have to turn your brain off. You have to really let a lot of things just go. You can't think about anything too hard. The logic, if someone gets like, explodes, like you have to just assume they might be okay. That's the thing with these movies, though. It's very hard to really tell when things, like the serious things, actually matter, because you just can't really explain it. Like, I mean, in the second movie, like, it looked like Dr. Robotnik died, and in this one, he's alive, so, how did he survive? We don't know. They don't really explain it to you. He just is, and you never really know what's going to happen. But going back to Jim Carrey for a second as Dr. Robotnik, I just want to say how much I love what he brings to these movies. He's really the key to, like, what makes them as good as they are, and it's that lovable, chaotic energy that nobody else in Hollywood can replicate. He's brought it to so many movies, like Dumb and Dumber, Ace Ventura, The Mask, like, so many great films. And he also has these great dramatic chops, too, which he doesn't really use as much of here, but, like, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, The Truman Show. He's a very talented actor and has so much range. But in this case, he just gets to be goofy, silly Jim Carrey, and that's awesome with me. And he gets to play two characters here, so it's twice as much of that silliness and craziness and wackiness that I love, and I just really love seeing him. Like, he's a scene stealer. He gets the best lines, the best laughs, and so many fun scenes in the movie. I could literally watch an entire movie with him just improvising as Dr. Robotnik. I would be so entertained by it. It would be really fun. As for the rest of the cast, though, it was fun to see everyone back again. Ben Schwartz is great casting for Sonic. He just really sounds exactly like he does in the game. Colleen O'Shaughnessy is perfect as Tails. She's just kind of been the voice for Tails for a while now, and she's great. Idris Elba, an awesome actor, makes for a great Knuckles. He's just really good casting, too. And now we get the coolest guy ever, Keanu Reeves, to play Shadow. This really awesome, cool character. And what a fantastic casting choice, I have to say. Like, there was a bit where we thought it might be Hayden Christensen as Shadow, and I'm kind of glad it ended up being Keanu, because he was made for this role, and he knocks it out of the park. Like, similar to John Wick, it's just a perfect role for him. I think, like, Keanu's one of those actors who, I don't think he has, like, the best acting range, like, compared to, like, Jim Carrey or something. But what he does do is, if he gets the right role, he just is perfect for it. And that's what it is here. He's just great. He brings this pain and darkness to the character that contrasts so well with the rest of the cast. And I love what he did here. He made Shadow even cooler than I expected. He's so good in this, and I can't imagine anyone else playing the role right now. The action in the movie is also pretty fun. They get to play around with the characters' powers and using them for effective chase sequences. The way the camera moves around and shows speed is really cool. Like, the camera's just moving a lot. Feels very dynamic. I appreciated that. And there's some stuff that happens in the third act that made me grin a lot as a fan. It's very cool. Kind of the same way a lot of people were like geeking out in the second movie towards the end. That happens, again here. Lots of stuff fans will be very pleased with. And once again, the visual effects are very solid. The characters look detailed, and despite having a cartoonish look, unlike ugly Sonic design from a few years ago, they don't feel out of place. They really do kind of work in this human environment. And, again, really despite having a more animated look, I think they blend in enough. They feel like they belong, so that works. This is also by far the funniest movie of the three. I don't really think any of them are hilarious by any means, but this one does have the most humor that worked for me. Particularly with Jim Carrey, just like having, especially two of them interact with each other was really funny. There are some pretty quotable scenes and memorable bits that had me cackling at how silly it was. Jim Carrey is really the scene stealer in that regard. Like, he gets some really great lines. There are a few scenes that I really loved with the two of them. I really just wished the overall movie was as fun as its parts, though, because when the movie does things well, it's a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it, but I think it still suffers from being too kiddie at times and putting too much time into the human characters who I frankly don't care about. Besides Jim Carrey, he's innocent, but everyone else, I could do without them. I could do without the Olive Garden gift card guy, like I could do without, I could do without just like the main human characters who honestly I can't even remember their names. They're just so forgettable. Just really could have done without them. Just make a movie with all the hedgehogs, all the other characters, the Sonic characters from the games. I would be so much happier if we just had a movie with just them. And maybe, Jim Carrey too. There are also a few weird choices with the characters in trying to make things more serious. One of my biggest gripes with the movie is a choice Sonic makes in the latter half of the film. I understood what they were going for. Like, it's not a move that was totally out of left field, but I think the way they handled it, the way they executed the decision was very rushed and felt kind of out of nowhere. Like, it just didn't feel like it added up with who this character is and all the time we've known him in the other two movies and, first half of this movie. It didn't really feel like it just went together for me. But again, I don't know. I could see what they were thinking. It could have used more work. The movie does a lot of this kind of stuff where a character will just change on a dime and you're supposed to roll with it. Sometimes it serves the story enough that I didn't mind, but I think it should at least feel built up a little bit. I think it really should be established a little more, like what these characters are thinking and why they want to do what they do. So I think that was a bit of an issue. But the writing is really just like my core problem with this movie, as well as the other two. It's like the dialogue is sometimes pretty cringy, and I just don't think like it makes much sense. It's really just like the actors and the chemistry that bring it all together. Otherwise, I think it would be a much worse film. Director Jeff Fowler also does a good job, as good of a job as he can to bring these scenes to life in his own way, and he elevates the scripts more because of it. He's a good director and clearly a big fan of the characters. I mean, I think he really learned his lesson after the first movie with Ugly Sonic, but he's really just delivered on these other two. He made fans happy. He made just general audiences really like these characters, and I'm excited to see what he does if he continues with a fourth movie. I'm excited to see what he does there, and I really hope he keeps getting better. The movie ends leaving some exciting things in store for another potential sequel, and also some questions about what direction it could go in, so that's pretty cool. As a casual fan of the games, I'm optimistic about what's next for these characters, and as an even more casual fan of these movies, I'm hoping they keep getting better and they keep improving. Maybe if they get a better screenwriting team, I think these could be really awesome. Definitely some of the better video game adaptations out there. But not quite there yet. I still have a lot of problems with these films. Because while I did have a good time and enjoyed myself watching the movie, I just know deep down that these films can be even better. Like, personally, I just don't feel the need to ever rewatch these films. Like, I watched the first one once in theaters. I watched the second one once in theaters. I watched the third one once in theaters. I probably won't watch them again unless for some reason way down the line, like I just completely forgot and feel like the desperate need to revisit it. That's just not how I feel right now, though. I could probably pass. I know there's also a Sonic Knuckles show out there on Paramount Plus, so maybe I'll check that out at some point. But otherwise, I just feel like these movies are, okay one-time watches with the family. You put it on, you just don't really think about it again, you move on. That's kind of what these are. So I'm going to give it a B-. It's enjoyable enough, but I don't really think these movies are all that great and nothing for me that's worth recommending highly. But if you like the games, you like the other movies, definitely give it a watch. I think you'll have a good time. It's a decent film, nothing to run home about, but I think big fans will be more than satisfied with this one. And that about does it for this episode. If you want to follow my reviews, you can find me on Letterboxd at MovieKing1224. You can also listen to this podcast on your favorite apps such as Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. If you have any comments or feedback, I would love to hear it and improve the show. And of course, if you've enjoyed this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell to hear more like it. I appreciate you all so much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.